Okay, coming up next is the clientele, the new face of innovation, distributed and hyperconnected. As the previous panel just deliberated, so many bits about innovation, bottom up, and this session will bring diverse insights on suited innovation practices, collaborative engagements, and the need to humanize technology. Our speakers include Klaas Kruithof, CTO, AkzoNobel, who is an international leader of R&D with over 30 years of experience in almost all market segments of paints and coatings. Aalok Kumar, President and CEO, NEC Corporation, who has an experience over 26 years in providing strategic direction to leading global brands in Indian and international markets, including Japan, APAC, and EMEA. This session is chaired by Mahesh Zurale, Senior Managing Director and Lead Advanced Technology Centers in India, Accenture. Mahesh has nearly 30 years of experience in the global IT industry, and in his current role, he has the overall responsibility for technology delivery and driving the innovation at scale agenda at ATCI. Over to you, Mahesh.
Thank you so much, Shreya, for that introduction. I'm thrilled to be on this platform today with two exceptional professionals who have innovation at the heart of everything that they do. Klaas, Aalok, such a pleasure to be talking to you today on innovation, a topic that's on everyone's mind. Let me set some context for this session. There isn't a CEO who has innovation, who doesn't have innovation in his or her priorities, top 3 priorities. And as pandemic disrupted everything for every single individual on the planet all at the same time in such a short time frame, it has essentially almost forced everybody, all of us, to adopt new ways of doing many things that we do. And this forced adoption and the need to adapt has opened up people's mind for new things. Very rarely in the history, such a huge amount of disruption happened in such a short amount of time. As people opened up to new ways of doing things, I think we have reached a stage where consumers are almost demanding new experiences from the businesses that support them. And as consumers demand these new experiences, businesses have had to absolutely respond in a very, very short amount of time. They have had to create new products. They have had to create new services to be able to fulfill the new expectations. And as they build these new products and services, they have had to transform their supply chain and how they deliver the products and services as well. With that, the huge disruption, with the change that happens, essentially the entire client value chain has been disrupted. Every business is looking to transform the entire client value chain. Now, traditionally, these sort of transformations would be done in a sequential manner. Gone are the days when you had that much of a time to drive the transformation in a sequential manner. Now it is super critical that businesses take up these transformations all in parallel, significantly crunching the time it takes, what we at Accenture call compressed transformation. And naturally, this now requires a very, very different approach to innovation, isn't it? So during this session today, we will be discussing what are these nuances, what are the aspects which are forcing companies to turn around their approaches to innovation 180 degrees, and how do they help consumers and how do they themselves get on this compressed transformation journey. With that, I'm going to get into the conversation. Klaas and Aalok, to get us going, I have a very simple question for us to get started. Klaas, let me begin with you. You have been a researcher all your life, such an illustrious career in research and development. You're an authority when it comes to paints, polymers, coatings, and related technologies. You have led the R&D teams of varying sizes over your career. How do you find the pandemic has kind of nudged you to change your approach to innovation? What have been the key trends that that are almost forcing you to take a fresh look?
Yeah, thanks, Mahesh. If you look a little bit to my company, to AkzoNobel, I can almost say that we were a little bit ahead of the pandemic. We didn't know that the pandemic was happening, but it was 3-4 years back when AkzoNobel decided to divest its chemical business. And that was the moment in time when the company became 100% focused paints and coatings company from a big conglomerate it has been ever since the mid of the previous century. And it was actually at that moment, so a few years back, when the CEO challenged me and said, Klaas, we're now 100% paints and coatings. We need to refresh our portfolio because our R&D portfolio looks different because we are now paints and coatings. And what can we do to actually make ourselves the reference in this industry, put ourselves on the map as an innovative paints and coatings company? And in a way, that is AkzoNobel. But if you would look at the context of our industry, we combined this with the observation that actually, well, you said it, I'm working for the paint and coatings industry for almost more than 3 decades. It's a fantastic industry, and not too many people actually are aware of what we need and what we do. They think we buy some pigments and we stir a little bit and we need a few molecule benders. But actually, there are moments when we hire more data scientists or software engineers to actually do our research we're currently executing. So we combine both refreshment of the agenda and actually opening up to the outside world to say what are our challenges, and to seek input from the outside world, startups, scale-ups, students for that matter, into different areas which would be novel for us, but what the other party probably was not aware that we were anyway interested in this. That was a very interesting journey, which we actually started in 2019. And then the pandemic came about and all the rest is history. But the pandemic didn't much influence it further. We actually went on this journey at that moment. So that basically was our recent refresh of our innovative agenda.
Very, very interesting indeed. Aalok, I have the same question for you. What are the key trends that that you have been facing that have pushed you to adopt a new approach?
Yeah, thanks, Mahesh. As you know, NEC is a technology company, and besides inventing and reinventing ourselves, we are at the crossroad where we deliver technology and digitization for many of our clients. So not only did the pandemic force us to transform ourselves, but at the same time, we were being demanded to force change amongst our clients. Now, what we observed was happening pre-pandemic was that you would have many customers, you would have one set of customers who would be very convinced about digitization. And they would come in with their full cavalry, budget, funding, project management team. So you will get a lot of depth in dealing with them when you drive digitization with them. What we started to see as pandemic rolled out was there was this whole tsunami of new fence sitters who wanted to get digitized fast. What we therefore began to experience was a lot of width in digitization demand. Not necessarily depth, because people would say, just give me a touchless, just give me Zoom enable, just give me something. So I think we've had to rethink and recalibrate our team from deep domain expertise to something that goes and gets your arm around them and still be able to cover width while you deliver depth. Now, what this means is that we had to do fundamental shift in the way we wanted to drive innovation, because you had to democratize innovation. You had to empower the frontline staff, because just the the massive amount of work that was coming to us led us to create some fundamental shift in our culture and the way we were driving innovation and the way we were measuring innovation. And I think that we're glad that it has happened, because I'm very passionate about the fact that, innovation needs to happen in the front lines, not necessarily from top down. So we're seeing these two big changes, and I'm glad and hope that it stays with us.
Thanks for that, Aalok. Interesting indeed. At Accenture, our observations have been fairly similar, I would say. Even before the pandemic, our research showed that the leaders in adopting digital technologies were growing at double the rate as compared with the laggards, which is basically the bottom 25th percentile of the landscape. Now, post-pandemic, interestingly, that gap has widened so much. The multiple is now, growth multiple is now almost 5 times. So, indeed, all our clients are looking to adopt digital transformation across their entire customer value chain. Let me open up this discussion further, and I want to get your opinion on a particular topic. So, as products and services become increasingly complex, everybody has so much dependence on a much broader ecosystem of suppliers, partners, academia, and so on and so forth. So I'm wondering, how does one get to innovate with such a broader ecosystem? How does one get the entire ecosystem to co-innovate with you? And how do you go about building such an ecosystem? Any thoughts, any experiences that you have had that you would like to share?
You want me to start, Mahesh?
Yes, why not, Klaas? Go.
Well, building a bit on what I've just said, opening up to the outside world was actually our driver to start the initiative and what has become known now as Paint the Future. We kicked this off in 2019, so that was shortly after the refresh of the program. And we opened up to the startup world on a global scale. And we went out with a few challenges. So what are challenges, what we are looking for, what bothers us, what are hurdles we can't take, and please can you help us, and please bring in submissions and come up with ideas to actually help us going on. And this program was really a success. This was the first global exercise. After this, we did a few regionals, and we are currently running a second global. And the ecosystem, in the meantime, grew to, well, I think we have now 1,200 proposals. Checking out our social media approaches, we are to about 200 million people reached with the Paint the Future social media channels. So this ecosystem is really building as we speak. And we feel this is a very interesting approach for the paints and coatings industry, not really to us in this idea, but you can clearly see that the entire industry is helped because we are opening up and people suddenly see, hey, I'm a startup. I've never thought that a paint company would be interested in my idea, and then we further develop. So this was our initiative in 2019 when we started this Paint the Future approach. That was our take to partly do this. We do more, but this was just.
That's really good to know. Aalok, what about you? What are your views?
Yeah, just putting customer first. So one of the expectations, as you would have also experienced, Mahesh, is that the customers are now just not looking for a solution. They are looking for an integration. Many people who were fence sitters are now coming in and saying, I don't understand digitization. You come and help me. And therefore, NEC is one of the world's leader as master system integrator. So we stitch technology together. Not all the technologies are our own. So we bring in a lot of suppliers, a lot of partners. And fundamentally, what we believe in is that we need to create a model of shared victory, where suppliers and partners feel they are in for a much bigger game, working and playing by the side of NEC. What a large conglomerate like an NEC can deliver, a small is a wrong, but a very niche, customized solution maker may not be able to get that. But when you power that solution together, when you stitch it together, what you offer to the customer and what you offer to lift the productivity of the society, I think it makes a huge difference. Now, the question is that, are we making sure that that victory is shared? So that's, I think, I would say is learning number one, and I think we put a lot of focus on that. The other pieces of this so-called delivery value chain, if I may, is people like startups and even educational institutions. So we work, for example, very closely with IIT Mumbai, where we have a memorandum of understanding where all the new technologies, we do freehold hackathons among students and industry peers who could come in and give ideas and take a solution. And we reward them. We provide scholarships. We provide platforms for them to do projects, right? So I think the point I'm making in the two spectrum, and there's multiple other examples I can give in between, is that we've got to figure out who plays what role in that value chain. And you create a winning proposition. A student doesn't really care about what the definition of shared victory has to be cleared to your value chain. So for a supplier, it may mean a certificate from you. For an educational institution, it may be meaning a hackathon leading to a project, leading to a scholarship, leading to funding. And once you create that ecosystem, I think you can create a massive tailwind to win with a customer. So we try to use that model. I won't say it's perfect because there's lots of moving parts, but we're trying to create more shared space to call victory.
Yeah, I love your vision about creating that shared victory and the role each member of the ecosystem can play. I mean, at Accenture, we have tried to do the same thing, being in the same tech space. We have fantastic relationships with the big platform players, be it the Google, AWS, the Microsofts of the world, Salesforces of the world, and increasingly the niche platform players who may be building some industry-specific niche solutions, etc. We have been nurturing our relationship with academia as well, and I do see a hugely increased potential for us to do that in India, both for the academia as well as for the industry. I think the academia can do a lot more to bring greater research focus beyond teaching, and at the same time, industry can take advantage of that. I think as our industry progresses from pure IT to more, pure sciences led and combined with technology, the role that academia plays can be hugely enhanced. Same with startups. Klaas, you mentioned, I totally agree with that. Essentially, startups bring two things, and it's the speed, which is what customers expect. So they will bring a very laser sharp focus on delivering new solutions for a new or an old problem using new technologies, but it's a very different model at a much greater speed. And we too have also been building an ecosystem partnerships of our with startups whose solutions we incorporate into the solutions that we take to our clients. So this is a very, very exciting space to watch. Let's look at another interesting aspect of innovation, which is, for a long time, innovation in any organization was the responsibility of the few. You would have a focused R&D department. You would have a very specific team building one or more products. But as the need for all businesses to expand innovation across the entire customer value chain, we have to wonder whether this calls for a transformation from innovation being responsibility of just a few to innovation everywhere. How do we enable that? What are the drivers that will help us in bringing about that cultural change? Because this is about bringing about a huge cultural change, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it is maybe a bit of an open door, but what we have seen when we started to build our Paint the Future ecosystem, like I said, I started with suppliers, and then indeed we expanded to we started with startups, we expanded to suppliers, we extended to academia, and I recall when we did the program in the beginning, we had a lot of even internal friction. I mean, people looked at it because it was different. Even my own R&D team said, hey, why do we need this? Because we have almost 3,000 scientists. We know what to do. Why do you need to ask somebody else? So there was actually quite some pushback. We wanted to be more visible. We created different logos. We created different company colors. Well, I can tell you, everybody who works for a large corporate, if you touch the corporate colors, you are in trouble. So we really found these disconnections everywhere. And what was really nice to see is that through keeping pushing this, I have to admit, through myself and our CEO, who was really, really, really positive about this, then in the end, you see that after 2-3 years, the coin starts to flip because the system has success. People suddenly realize, hey, this innovative solution actually brings novel things. It's actually quite cool. The CEO likes it. That helps a little bit, I have to admit. But at some point, you see you see the medal flipping. And then suddenly, when we are starting now also a challenge in India, by the way, on March 1st. But now people literally come to us, can I join? So basically from what is this and we don't want, we have now, if we look internally, we have roughly 10% of our entire population involved one or another in this program. And that involves people from legal, about NDAs. It involves obviously people from procurement. It's actually people from communication. So the entire suite of functions, if you want, not only R&D, is involved in this program, have fun, and certainly like it. And I think this was a very nice observation, how we transferred this from a few people who, what we always call it, we were hacking the system to some extent, how we now basically feel support and people would like to join the system rather than objecting it. So we basically, by doing this, got quite a lot of enthusiasm and indeed involvement of the entire company. But the essence is, I think, it sounds very too obvious, I'm afraid, but the leadership elements, the CEO, it's really the top of the company should be visibly supporting this. And that, I think, was the crux. Other than it was a good idea, of course, but a good idea which is not supported dies anyway. So.
Well, I mean, great to see all the multiple things that you have brought to give this push, and I'm really glad to see how that cultural change is coming about. Aalok, what about NEC? What has been your approach?
We've had to. We've taken a little bit of a more aggressive stance where we have. Again, I completely agree with Klaas that it needs to be driven from the top. But that's a given. Without that, it's not going to happen. I think we have gone, and I use the term democratized innovation, which is I have gone there and been very vocal to say that the best ideas will never come from the executive corridors. It will come from the belly of the organization. And we have a strong belief that, leadership happens at all levels of the organization. It's experiential leadership, right? It happens all the time. And we need to have, I think there's 3 secret ingredients that is extremely important to even sustain it. And it doesn't become just a lip service to say that, look, I'm inviting ideas, but will you really get participation? Will somebody really raise their hand and give their ideas and at the risk of being called a fool in their mind? And I think there are 3 things that are important. Number 1 is there has to be a war cry. There has to be a war cry to connect the organization to say, it's okay. I am inviting you. It's okay. So that war cry needs to be we created almost a marketing campaign around it, right? Point number 2 is, the culture. And we propagated a culture to fail fast. We started rewarding people who were failing, but failing fast. And that started to open the kind of thaw the ice a little bit to say that, look, actually, they are walking the talk, and put innovation in the center of the DNA. Cliched statement, easy to say, very hard to do, but you got to repeat that over and over again. And I think, needless to say, reward and recognition. So that's the culture part, right? But I think The most important part is how do you democratize it? Like, what is going to be the pathway on which your this war cry is going to run? What is going to be the rail line and the rail tracks on which it is going to run? So we've actually introduced a completely new platform where people can come in, join, throw an idea, and there's somebody who's catching those ideas on the other side. So there is a committee of employees. It's not senior level executives. The committee of employees who have volunteered to say, I want to be in the evaluation committee. And through that, you've started to crowdsource the idea. And then you have started to crowd evaluate those ideas. And you've asked people to actually do likes on the ideas. And whoever gets more likes gets a priority or to make a presentation. And then when you create that system that is enabled and run by the employees, where executive corridors don't come in, right? The trust in the system really multiplies, because then they say that this is all about us. They are not coming in the way. All you do, and I think that's genuinely the role of leadership, the only role of leadership is you just celebrate it. You celebrate it through reward and recognition. You celebrate with small things. I'll give you an idea. In our company, through these idea boxes, it's supposed to be an innovation platform, but once you open it to crowdsourcing, many things can happen. So somebody came back and said that, look, we are fatigued with the number of digital meetings we are having, virtual meetings that we are having. Can we have a day where there will be no internal meetings? We lapped up on that idea and we actually institutionalized it, and we started to having second Friday of every month as a no meeting day. Now, when I announced it, I actually gave a reward to 2 of the employees who had submitted that idea. The magic that it did in the system, which is even something as small and what they may have thought as a frivolous idea, was picked up, celebrated, and implemented. Now that creates a lot of faith in how we want to really democratize the process. So I would say these 3 elements, there are many in innovation cycle, but these 3 elements of how do we connect and align the organization through a war cry? How do we create and reinforce the culture? And then how do we democratize it? How do we create the process on which these ideas will run so that you don't get, the so-called more entitled people coming in and judging whether it's the right process or not. Let the people judge that.
I love that and completely endorse that the thought about democratizing through having a platform where people can come and express their ideas. But I specifically love the democratization of judging and voting through this social media-like approach. We have had similar things at Accenture. A couple of other things to add is we set up, going back to 5 or 6 years, we set up innovation hubs where people can come and build and showcase. And to me, it doesn't mean that innovation happens only in these hubs, but these are the places where one goes to get inspired about innovation. And I thought that was having a very, very great impact. We also did some gamification. So we have innovation contests on multiple themes, innovating for the society, innovating for business. And to your point, Aalok, initially few people participated, and when others saw their colleagues getting felicitated, every year the participation increased, and we now have almost 100,000 ideas flowing in every year. Wow. So this is the democratization is something that can be done at scale. I'm a firm believer of that. Let me come to the final point in the interest of time, and we have to talk about people as we talk about innovation. How does one put humans at the center of any innovation we do it? Because let's face it, if you miss out on that human element, the innovation will most likely not deliver the value it is expected to, isn't it? Yet time and again, we see people missing that out. So how do we retain that human centricity at the heart of any innovation that we do? What has been your approach? Klaas, let me bring you in again.
Yeah, because of course, also if you particularly zoom a little bit in connection to the IT industry and all the digitization elements we're doing, the fun part, of course, is that if you look into the paint chemistry, we are probably the most analog business you can think of, at least by basics, like paint and colors. And it's always intriguing to see how we then come from this, if you want, analog approach, and how we then try to translate this into, well, in this particular case, more digital solutions, and solutions which, on the other hand, you could also run in some extent over the internet. And what we have seen is that if you are able to come up with solutions for customers, which they actually see as bringing them added value, then it works. I mean, if you come with solutions which are complicated, difficult to do, not user-friendly, customers let it go, and actually the old system remains. But if you, for instance, if you think about repairing cars, if you see how a body shop owner in the old days, with all his collar chips and little cards, things tries to mimic a collar, it costs him a lot of time. In most of the cases, the first or the second try is wrong. If you then offer him a digital solution and a piece of equipment which allows him to do it one time right, he will be willing to understand a different way of working. He will be willing to teach his people how to run a particular software. They will use it every day, and as a consequence, get experience in it, and it works. So, from that perspective, I think it's a really an interesting challenge. And actually, by the way, this is also the reason why our Paint the Future India challenge, what I said we will launch anytime soon in India, is actually exactly targeting the digital customer experience. So we are basically tapping into the, if you want, digital world in India to see how we can improve the customer experience and exactly do what you've just said. Build in, bring in new technology in such a way that customers feel happy and helped by it. If they are more prone to business, see the added value, and then I think it will work. And I'm really looking forward also to what this will bring us.
Fantastic. Alok?
Yeah, I'll try and bring this alive through a couple of examples. And customers are different in different engagement, right? There could be an end customer, there could be a B2B customer. I'll give you an example of a system integration work that we are doing in 4 airports in India. And for the first time in India, when you walk into the airport gates, the entry gate of an airport, we are creating a solution and have actually implemented right now in one of the airports where your facial recognition becomes the boarding pass. There is not a single point that you have to touch, nothing. You get straight away a prompt on your phone that tells you, Mr. So-and-so, we believe you are on a flight to Mumbai from Delhi. This is the gate that you need to get to. Now, of course, in order for this solution to be truly engaging and enlightening, I mean, some of the other pieces of the India security system has to change, but broadly, that's the solution that we have implemented. In another example, we are working with bus rapid transport system in multiple cities, in 5 different cities, where we are enabling completely touchless and paperless boarding and deboarding, and multiple payment channels that you see in the Western world. Now, the brain behind all of this is a massive system integration work, but the output, the aha moment, is just that one little experience, which translates into somebody saying that I am walking into the gate and I'm getting a prompt on my phone. And there are massive algorithms that are actually working behind the scenes to make that happen. But the customer, the end customer, doesn't need to care about that or doesn't need to worry about that, right? And that's the job of any corporate when they are delivering, which is ultimately, what is it that my customer is going to experience? And if we are not able to really box that very, very clearly, I think we will get into multiple issues of, not agreeing with your client as to what was the deliverable, etc. And many times, we've found that we've actually have to educate our customers, like you must have seen, Mahesh, in your Accenture experience, that the clients don't completely know the power of what technology can do. And we've had to kind of hold their hand to say that, why are you stopping at this? We can actually enable this for you. We are, for example, running, implementing an automated immigration gates. Like you see in the Western world, you just simply walk in through the gate and your immigration is done. So no more immigration queues, etc. We've tested that in the Delhi airport, etc. So I think people touch has to be in the center of everything that we do, else we are not going to scale any of these solutions.
Oh, I love those examples. I bet, as the world opens up to travel, hopefully soon enough, so many thousands of passengers are going to be thanking you. I love that. Similar experiences from Accenture side as well. And I think customers are almost now demanding that they not only do they get smart products, but they want to be involved in the creation of those smart products and services. Let me rephrase some conversation that I had with a CEO of a very large sports apparel and footwear manufacturer. So he's telling me that in the past, how basically the way the company operated is that you had a designer design shoes in one market. Now for the actual manufacturing, it was sent over to a lower cost location, be it China or Vietnam or Malaysia or India. And they would select from a few from a large number of designs. The shoes get manufactured, then they get sent back through the supply chain. And by the time they are stocked in the stores in the market, it would be 6 months from the date of design. You know what their new competition was? The new competition was coming from the Silicon Valley, where you could go into a boutique shop where the midsole of the shoe, for example, could be custom built for a given individual and 3D printed there. You could pick a design from thousands of design options and your shoe is printed then and there. And their customers are now demanding the same experience from the larger companies as well. It just goes on to show the importance of keeping the human, the customer at the center of that R&D and design process as well. I think there is another aspect that I would like to bring in though before we close, which is innovation. Unfortunately, often has a unintended consequence. It does disrupt a class of people who suddenly find their skills to be totally outdated. Have you had to face this? Have you seen your customers and others facing this issue? How do you think we can tackle it?
Yeah, that happens. I mean, like I mentioned, one of the examples is since the beginning of this century, we digitized color. So where in the old days, we had around the world what we call 5 color factories where people did nothing else but developing new colors. We had thousands of these people in our factories to actually correct colors. And today, this for 95% is digitized. So indeed, jobs disappear. Well, that's evident. I mean, you see the same with banking or other businesses. I don't think you need to close your eyes for this. What helps is connecting to these people, offering them other roles, learning them how these machines work to actually get them involved. And yes, a few will drop out, but you need to work on this process, because the other interesting challenge is you also need these people to actually also implement the new solution. Because in the beginning, the old colorists need actually to test the machine, whether it works, yes or no. And if they all the time say no, then the machine is killed. And if this yes, they think, oh, hang on a second here. If I think this machine is doing a good job, I'm basically losing my job. It's what happens. So you really need to manage that process. I think we did that quite well. And then either people, like I said, they pick up and become extremely skilled in an area which is novel for them. Actually, they innovate themselves. And indeed, a few people lose and drop out. And for that same sake, jobs which existed 50 years ago don't exist anymore today. And jobs which exist today will cease to exist in the years to come. On the other hand, many more new jobs will arise. So basically, the equilibrium is okay.
Totally agree with you, Klaas. I would love to continue this discussion forever. There are so many aspects of innovation that that we as industry need to come together and keep discussing. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so I'm going to take this to closure. Klaas, Aalok, it was such a pleasure talking to you today to get to know your views about how innovation is changing and needs to change on an ongoing basis. It was great knowing your views about and your experiences about driving the cultural changes, addressing the barriers, making sure that innovation is everywhere across the organization, and the human centricity. Great to have you share your insights. Thank you very much. I'm sure our audience would love that all of them have innovation on their minds as well. With that, I would like to close this session. Back to you, Shreya.
Wow, this session has given us an insight into understanding what customers are looking for, and so many anecdotal references as well. It's not just about the solutions, but about understanding client needs and finding ideas and solutions, not just from the executive corridors, but from the value of the organizations. Thank you, Mahesh, Klaas, and Aalok, for a very engaging and enlightening session.